Amici di Spaghetti Boost, siamo presso la Galleria di Raffaella Cortese a Milano e ospiti, e Raffaella ci introdurrà alle due mostre in questo momento in esposizione nella propria galleria. Buongiorno.
Allora, buongiorno. Introdurre è una parola un po' così più complicata. Io parlo in fondo di due grandi amiche artiste con le quali ho un rapporto da tanti anni, in modo particolare con Barbara, perché ci conosciamo veramente da più di 20-28 anni, quindi un lungo periodo, e sono sempre molto, come dire, felice, perché credo nella durata delle relazioni e credo che ci possano dare sempre delle conoscenze più approfondite, delle esperienze anche più importanti, per cui anche le mostre che vengono fatte in galleria nel corso di così tanti anni diventano poi un po' degli episodi, no? E adesso che insomma compio, portandoli molto male, 30 anni di lavoro, mi rendo conto che insomma sono la grande ricchezza della galleria, di quello che insomma abbiamo costruito insieme, perché sono veramente compagni di avventura, di vita, di viaggio, e hanno sempre anche illuminato molto la mia mente, i miei pensieri. Con molte di loro poi condivido anche amori letterari comuni, dalla poesia alla letteratura, insomma ci sono tanti punti importanti di contatto.
Tu mi dicevi prima che questo rapporto con gli artisti è molto, molto bello, perché comunque ti dà molto in questo periodo della tua vita.
Io penso che sia la cosa veramente più arricchente, appassionata, e credo da sempre nel fattore umano. L'esperienza, la conoscenza umana per me è fondamentale. È chiaro che è importantissima l'intesa anche intellettuale, no? Però è molto difficile poi capire dove finisce uno e dove inizia l'altro, perché non capisco neanche mai bene dove finisce la mia vita e dove inizia il mio lavoro.
Questo è bello.
Sì, devo dire che forse quello che condivido con loro è proprio questa unione tra arte e vita, cioè sono...
Adesso in questo momento nella tua galleria, dove ci troviamo?
Ci troviamo in via Stradella al numero 7.
Allora Raffaella, adesso in questo momento noi siamo nella tua galleria e ci sono due esposizioni di Silvia Bacli e Barbara Bloom. Silvia Bacli svizzera,
sì.
Barbara Bloom invece newyorkese, nata a Los Angeles. Fino a quando durano le esposizioni?
Le mostre inaugurano questa sera e dureranno per circa 3 mesi. Questo è sempre stata anche una mia scelta molto ben precisa, perché voglio sempre dare, in un momento storico così frettoloso, e il tempo invece di vedere le mostre con calma e di ritornare a vederle. Poi pur facendo fiere pur essendo anche molto dinamici, però io credo che il centro vero un po' del nostro lavoro sia la galleria, e dove si instaurano rapporti più interessanti, più consistenti, più di scambio, e quindi facciamo di solito durare le mostre più a lungo. Mi stupisco sempre quando in America durano un mese, neanche 3 settimane, perché francamente qui io non avrei la possibilità di lavorare su una mostra.
Grazie mille, adesso andiamo alla scoperta di Barbara Bloom. Eccoci qua, siamo in presenza di Barbara Bloom, è un grande piacere, qui alla Galleria di Raffaella Cortese a Milano. Come questa esperienza di Milano e soprattutto siamo qui in mezzo a queste opere site specific, sono state create per la mostra, e la mostra si intitola Accord, qual è questo punto di convergenza dell'accordo della mostra?
The conversation began quite a long time ago, quite a while ago, to think about, not particularly in relationship to Milano, but in relationship to the world as it goes politically, ecologically, spiritually at this moment. I'm not, my work is not a kind of a didactic or highly political work, but it just seemed to me that at this kind of a really complex and very difficult, cynical time, if it's possible to think about moments in history where human beings have behaved in extremely positive, intelligent, harmonious ways with each other, not in relationship to self-interest, but somehow the interest of the planet or of the people or of culture, almost as a way to get through this nightmarish moment. I mean, you can say it's kind of just selfish on my part to think, you know, if you start researching all of these very beautiful moments in history, it is somehow like, I don't know if the word balsam is like a salve or a soothing element over this time. And Raffaella and I talked about the possibility of doing this here, and whether and it's of course, the moment right now is kind of historically kind of so thick with events that are upsetting, disturbing, confusing, something. And so I'm not naive enough to think that an artwork can change anything politically. I don't think, certainly not what I make, but I think it gives you a possibility to think about, you know, treaties, accords, harmony, armistices, all kinds of events from the past that are examples of possibility.
Nelle tue opere c'è sempre una presenza e assenza, no? Anche per esempio dal fatto che ci sono delle ombre sulle tue opere, ombre che arrivano dal nulla, oppure metti personaggi della storia o personaggi di immaginazione insieme a discutere in un dialogo tutto loro, no? E poi oltretutto una cosa che mi colpiva era un'opera tête à tête, questo giasone che sulla seduta che ti guarda il passato e il presente. Com'è la tua relazione con la storia, in qualche modo la storia insegna, la storia ti protegge, questo rapporto tra invisibile e visibile è un qualcosa che protegge le nostre vite, che ha una relazione particolare con le nostre vite o no?
I often say that when people, you know, people ask you, what do you do? And you say, I'm an artist, and then they say, are you a painter? And I go, no. And they say, are you a sculptor? And I go, no. And then they say, and I don't really have an answer. I don't want to be difficult about it, but I don't really know what it is that I do, or I don't have a name for it. But then not so long ago, I came about an idea that I'm actually a novelist, that I'm actually a writer and probably a novelist, but that I stood in a wrong, when I went to stand in line, like you wait in line to sign up to be a writer, well, I stood in the wrong line and I became an artist, but actually I think more like a writer and like maybe probably a novelist. And so that there's always characters and history and the way these things take place in time, even though the work doesn't move, I'm thinking about the way that you look at it is cinematographic or theatrical, or at least like a novel, that you don't look at one thing, you look at this next to this, and then you notice that, and then it takes place in time, over time. And so the use of absence and absence is often a way of engaging the audience to imagine something which is there and not there, a way of letting the trace of something that happened, almost like you're a detective and you see the trace of, you see the trace of someone was sitting here but they're not there anymore. But I think in this work, and maybe more recently, I'm playing with the relationship between the two-dimension, the flat surface, and the three-dimension, the objects in the room. Because I think that often I've been using chairs very often in my work for the last 30 years. And it's somewhere in between some kind of decor, but it's not really. It's almost like each chair is a personnage it's a stand-in for a person. It's very anthropomorphic. You know that word? It's the person who's not there. And so the tête-à-tête is a perfect example. I saw this is a real style of chair where people sit next to each other, but they're not facing each other. I mean, we'd have to try it ourselves. You'd have to face that, or we'd have to turn around. And the kind of intimacy of sitting next to each other, you can whisper. They also call it a whisper chair, but it's also, they sit in opposite directions. So it's also kind of funny because they could both leave at any moment. And so it's a kind of very intimate kind of love story. And then the images behind it are from the Carnegie Museum in Pittsburgh in the United States, where these sculptures were across this vast room, one facing the other one, but then I took the photographs of them, and then I do this in a quick way. They faced each other, but the photograph behind them is the one that you see across from it. So it's almost like the memory of that sculpture there, or the lover's thought of it anyway. So there's always this mirroring and placement of things that insinuate some story, or I don't know if that's the answer to your question. So.
Yeah. Credi che ci sia una sorta, per esempio in quest'opera particolare, una sorta di conversazione in 3 livelli temporali diversi, perché si parla di una fotografia nel museo, poi di una statua di fronte alla fotografia e la sedia, la seduta di 2 persone che si possono sedere e parlare insieme, quindi 3 livelli temporali che conversano tra di loro. È una possibilità del tuo lavoro, cioè il fatto di mettere in comunicazione, come posso dire, la storia con il presente, con il futuro.
Yes. Like for instance, on the tête-à-tête chair is a cushion, and on the cushion is a fabric which I had printed and digitally printed, and it has a Janus head, so double-headed sculpture. Yeah. So again, there's kind of 2 things. And
Giasone. Giasone.
Yes.
Janus.
Janus. And so this one, and all of the works, I would say, are, you know, I'm hoping to layer a lot of different possible stories into the work, that as a viewer you pick up on certain threads, maybe not all of them. It's not necessary to get every single clue or thread that I put there, but you have a sense, it's very quiet, the work. It doesn't throw a lot of loud meaning at you, but it's very quiet, and then you slowly kind of realize, oh, these are the chairs, these are the same chairs that are in the picture. And oh, those are the 4 men who are standing at the chairs. And oh, you start to realize, oh, if that image of that treaty came off of the wall and placed itself in the room, that's where the people would stand. And it's not literal, but you have a sense of how you can animate, how you can, in your mind, you can animate things. I mean, in the last few years, I've done a number of works where, either in this case, where the human beings were, they cast a shadow onto the wall, or in this case, where what's on the wall renders itself out into the room. Almost like, like a child's idea of like how the pictures in the museum come alive at night, but it's not as simple as that, but it animates itself. So there's a kind of both things happening, that what would be in the room casts a shadow from the 3-dimension to the 2-dimension, or that the 2-dimension casts itself back out into the room. Or in the case of like the tête-à-tête, you have this complexities of the two sculptures, the two places from history, talking with each other over time, sitting with each other, whispering to each other, or they like the game table, this crazy idea of 4 people who did not even live in the same time, Jesus and Amy Winehouse and Emile Zola and Nefertiti, 4 people who never could have spoken to each other. If you imagine them sitting together playing a game, but it's not one game, you have these many layers of possibilities. Like in this one, you have all these layers of possibilities of you don't even know what the game is, but they're somehow playing some crazy game over history, engaged somehow in an event. So you always have kind of, the viewer is very important.
Un'ultima domanda che mi ha fatto riflettere sul fatto che prima tu hai affermato che non sai se l'arte possa in qualche modo salvare il mondo. Voglio esagerare, ma credi che perché poi la verità è che molti artisti pensano che la propria arte possa salvarla, no? Questa umanità, e credi che invece la tua arte serva a far riflettere le persone che guardano le tue opere?
I mean, I think in some ways the only job of an artist is to allow for reflection. I mean, that's the only thing you can hope for in any kind of form, is that you can hope that, that you can hope that you can engage someone either through the beauty of it or through in my case, I always use somehow some kind of beauty, that it looks engaging and light, you want to look at it. And then as you look at it, it becomes, it's more complex than that, what's going on here? And then you hope that in the thinking about it, maybe the most important thing that someone realizes there's not one particular way of understanding it, and that they learn to trust their own sense of how they puzzle through it, I hope that they feel that it's intended for them to trust themselves in their version of what it is. No one can have the right version of what this work is. It's lots of layers in it. But it's most important that someone has a feeling that they own their thoughts or feelings about it. Because particularly in this time when people are being told what to think and to think absolute untruth, that how do you for yourself know how to think? How do you for yourself know how to look? How do you know how to think through a problem? Or, I'm completely fine if someone comes in here and really hates this work and thinks this is really naive and really stupid. At least they've thought about it, That's all I really think that I would imagine most artists, what they want is to engage someone that they have trust their own their own ability to see and think and feel through looking at stuff. That's the job.
Thank you so much, Barbara.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I feel like at the end I'm like a preacher, like, you know.